you know, in a comic book. It will work on screen because they can see the movie, the dialogue, you know, there's things that you can do. It just doesn't work in a comic book. So a lot of times people have a hard time transferring back and forth, even though they might be the most brilliant writer ever, but it doesn't always work the same in different mediums. So I try to make sure that I do the best story I can using that.
Speaking of different mediums, what are some of your favorite movie adaptations? And I'm going to exempt material adapted from your own work if you want.
Oh, man. You know, it's so hard because as a writer, you have to, you know, and a fan too, you have to just know that the adaptation is not going to be the same as the original source material. There's, like I said, there's different things that work in different mediums. I think that I think that the Wonder Woman film was probably, the first Wonder Woman film, was probably the thing that absolutely floored me the most out of anything because, you know, her, not only is her character really important to me as a young girl growing up, when I discovered Wonder Woman, it was an absolute revelation to me because reading stories that had female-led characters, princesses always had to be saved by, you know, the handsome prince or a knight in shining armor or something like that. And I'd become really bored and not really interested in that type of storyline as a kid because I just read so much of it. And when I found Wonder Woman and she was proactive and she went out and had adventures on her own and she was a princess, I was just like, whoa, what is this miraculous thing that I'm looking at? And it just had such an effect on me. And so I was willing to wait and dream about a Wonder Woman film for as long as it would take to get a good one. I was way more terrified that we would have a Wonder Woman film that wasn't good because then I knew we would never get another one or maybe even any other female-led superhero films. So seeing that, I literally cried through almost the whole thing the first time through because it was so good, and she, you know, I just kept thinking the choices that were made in that film would not have been made probably by any other creative team than who did it. And so I was just so impressed because you've got 70 years of backstory and, you know, stuff to deal with, and how do you pick out what's the most meaningful or it says the most about the character and what's, you know, the theme of your movie and all that. And she just did such an amazing job of capturing who Wonder Woman is.
Given how you're dressed, I probably could guess this answer. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that's on me.
But you watched Suicide Squad 4 times.
Yeah, I like.
Oh yeah,
I like Suicide Squad.
Tell me about King Shark.
He's definitely a shark.
Do you find that you're able to disconnect when you're watching things that you know are adapted from comic materials? Are you able to just be like turn off that part of your brain, be like, hey, I'm as you said, you know, you have to. No, it's not going to be the same as the exact source material. But do you find yourself being able to enjoy it, or is it a slight challenge?
All films are a challenge for the people who are watching them with me because I am deconstructing stuff constantly.
Okay.
Trying to figure out how it works, why it worked, why it didn't work, what they took from the comic, what they added. You know, it's just my brain is like on overdrive. But I can appreciate it, you know, knowing that it's not going to be the same and it cannot ever be the same. Just takes that pressure off, you know, to be able to enjoy the vision that was put before you. And I think that Suicide Squad did a really amazing job with getting that tone and the dark humor without it just being really, you know, unpleasant or not making sense in the world that was created. Because that's just really, really, really tough to do successfully. And I'm just really impressed with it.
In general, what's the last great film you watched? Doesn't have to be a comic book film.
I just watched Annette.
Maybe we don't have any other Sparks fans here. See, it's just us. That's cool.
Even if you're not a Sparks fan, that's an art film. It's really
it's capital A art, just as a warning.
It's really good. It's really good. And then right before that, I watched Nicolas Cage's new movie.
Pig?
Yeah, and I thought
oh yeah, as an organ person.
Yeah,
like,
I thought that was really great.
Yeah.
Except it had me thinking, should we grow truffles? And I'm like, no.
My friends, I call it the truffle trade with Matt and Kate. You gotta get in that biz. Nobody knows what we're talking about. Fantastic. Switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about 7 days.
Okay.
It felt a little prescient, whether or not you intended it to be. What are you working on now so we can brace ourselves for 2022?
I know, when that happened, it was just like, oh my God. I don't know, I think, I don't have any ESP skills or anything like that, but I do pay attention to what's going on culturally and what's going on in our society and our world, and then you take that information and you interpret it to what you think the direction is we're going. And I just thought it was an interesting question to ask. What would happen if the entire world had PTSD because of this large event, and how would people respond? And then that became 7 days. And I don't know, what would be next? I can't and probably wouldn't say.
Fair. Like, do I need to build a bunker? Do I need to but I'll
Word compound comes into mind.
Okay,
I
all
did
right.
start gardening last summer.
all right. We'll be aware. We are also going to take audience questions if anyone has them and wants to line up. We are about a year and I would say a week into your feud with John Cena.
I think this might be a one-way feud, but don't tell me.
Yeah, how is that progressing? And has that coward answered your challenge yet? Okay. Billy Joel or John Cena, which would you prefer to take on first?
Oh my God, would I have to listen to Billy Joel's music?
I think, what medium would you take him on it? Like, what's your challenge, your battle arena? You get to pick your weapons. So no, maybe not.
I don't know, I would take on John.
Okay.
It'd just be fun.
Because you've been obviously, yes.
Take him on with words.
Yeah, yes.
So I'm interested in how, as a writer, you work with an artist. Do you write sometimes for the artist and their point of view and how they draw and create, or do you look for an artist that is compatible with your theme and idea, or can you tell me more about the relationship? And I'm thinking of actually doing some things myself as a writer.
Okay. It works in a lot of different ways, so there's no one clear answer to that question. Sometimes I have to write a script before we know who the artist is. Sometimes I write a script for people whose English is their second language. Sometimes we create it together and we talk about the content and what it's going to be and how it's going to look and everything before I ever write one word. Sometimes the artist is assigned to me, not to me, but is assigned to a project, like maybe if it's a Wonder Woman comic book, then Aaron the Preston's going to do the art, and the company has made that decision. And then Aaron and I have conversations, and I always ask the artists what things they love to draw and what things they do not love to draw, because especially with the comic book or graphic novel, for a 22-page comic, the artist is going to be working full-time on that, like pretty much exclusively for a month or 6 weeks, depending on who the artist is, how long it takes them to draw. So I don't want them to be miserable and say, oh God, I hate drawing robots, they're the worst, and now I've got to draw 6 pages of robots. I try to be very aware of their time and headspace and stuff too. I do write full script, not everybody does that, so the artists will have full script when it comes time to sit down and do all the breakdowns on the art. But if I have a panel suggestion, a panel arrangement suggestion, and they think of a better way to do it, then they always have that right because they're the visual artist and I'm not. So I trust in them, and I've just had such a privilege to be able to work with so many super talented people. It makes everything better than what it starts out to be.
Right.
You just have to be aware of the project and who you're working with and how they work and how much they want to be involved.
Do you have a preference of how to work, or?
My preference is to know the artist at least a little bit up front in terms of what they like and don't like to draw, what they're capable of, what really gets them excited. If they hate pages that have 6 panels, or they hate too many splash pages, or whatever, because I want, like I said, I want them to be happy. But because I write full script, by the time it gets into their hands, they've got the full story.
Thanks.
Is there a project that you've worked on where the artist has been essentially assigned to it already that it surprisingly turned out to be one of your favorites?
There's a lot. I mean, that's how.
Or what are some of the highlights we'll go with?
I think that, I worked with Aaron on Wonder Woman, and then we did a Wonder Woman Conan crossover together, and I think that Aaron's work on that crossover was just absolutely amazing. And then Walter Giovanni, who's been mostly anything Red Sonja that I've written, he has been the artist on. And him and I have a really great relationship in terms of writer-artist. Just, he knows what I want, even when I don't know what I want. So.
What was the first comic that you read, and how did you feel when you read it, and where were you?
What are we talking about? Comic books or comic strips?
Comic book. Like if you were a child and you held it, or like just how you felt and where were
I
you?
think the first, I grew up in a really isolated area. I didn't have access to a comic book store until I was like 12, and we went to the city around my birthday, and that was the first time. So I got them from garage sales or leftovers from cousins or whatever. And I think the first one that I really remember reading was the Justice League. What number was that, Scott? Yeah, Justice League 100. I found it at a garage sale and had Wonder Woman on the cover, and I just wanted to find out more about who this glorious character was on the cover. And I didn't understand how comics were numbered or sequential storytelling in that way or anything at that time, and it just threw me in completely. So that was the first one.
But she used to ride her bike, you told me this many times, she used to ride her bike into town, which was quite a distance, right? To try to get the second part of the story. She thought that it would just be there at the store. But she got the comic at a garage sale from years previous.
Yeah. That's why when they, nowadays, when editors will be like, you have to let the reader know everything that's going on, and if something happened in the past story, I'm like, no, you don't. They'll find it. They'll find out.
It's on the internet if they need it. They can find it now.
The readers are smart.
Thank you.
Hi, first I want to say my hairdresser really likes your comics.
So meta.
And secondly, you said...
But does she fix you up with,
Do you like your hair
love
dressing?
interest?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Right.
You said that you wrote a comedy column in the past, and recently I saw you in a YouTube video about r/murdered by words. So what do you think is your best, comeback to something that someone has said? A best comeback to something that someone has said.
Oh my God.
Just look at her Twitter feed, honestly. The replies section. There's a good
Are there any that
menu there.
stand out in your memory, or?
I don't know.
The Punisher guy, and you.
Oh, yeah, that probably was the best. The guy was challenging me on something I said about the Punisher.
That he should smile more.
Yeah, I said Punisher should smile more, and the guy was challenging me on it and everything. And you don't know anything, you're just a character and all this. So I took a picture of my shelf where I have all the comics that I've written, and it was just like a small section. It's like, you don't know anything about comics. And so my byline was on all of them. And I just didn't really say anything. I just put the picture up.
How much of your house is dedicated, to comics?
Don't ask
shelves?
me.
Okay.
Oh my God, we're so in the process right now of trying to clear some room.
Okay.
Especially since the Magic Port gifted me so many wonderful games.
Oh.
She mentioned online that she wanted to try some board games, and she's been sent 800 games. One day we got 16 boxes, and I don't mean it's got a box with a game in it, I mean boxes this big. Games from publishers all over the world.
Wow.
So she's not allowed to say.
Yeah, the answer is too much.
So be careful what you wish for. Scenario.
Well, it was an issue before that. So. I mean, the publishers have been sending me comics now for 20 years.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And Sideshow
Collectibles,
scissors
scissors,
as well.
those take up space, but they are beautiful.
Well, I wanted to ask, actually I grew up loving the Master of Kung Fu Shang-Chi comics, and but it's hard to run, it's such a cult niche comic. I was thrilled to hear that he was one of your favorite characters. I was wondering if you could speak for a little bit on what you enjoyed about it from your perspective.
I love action comics. I really do. I like action films. I've always been fascinated by martial arts and different cultures and different ways of doing things, and that type of stuff just hit all my buttons. So it was just really fun, and the stories were interesting. And then as time has gone on, my son, like I said, he's a black belt, and so I became more interested in that and started writing. I always choreograph my own fight scenes, which most writers do not do. Now, when I started writing animation and for television and stuff, one of the first notes I got was, Gail, you don't have to coordinate all these fight scenes. You have people that do that, and they're good at it. And I'm like, oh, whoops, I was so embarrassed, It's like, ooh, what a rookie mistake. And then they freaking used the choreography that I wrote. Exactly. And I was like, okay, now I don't know what to do. But in comics, I always coordinated.
Thank you.
I just feel like you can say a lot about character when they're in, a really stressful situation like that. So I get real controlling at that point.
Hi. So in the TV show Arrow, they introduced both Black Canary and Huntress. And then in season 2, they actually had an episode called Birds of Prey, where they put them at odds with each other. And I remember, one of the scenes in that show, they actually had a cop saying, oh, they're holed up at Gail Street and Simone. Did you know that you were going to get a call out in that episode? And how did you feel being a street corner?
I didn't know until people were watching it and texting me and DMing me and stuff that, hey, this happened. And then sending me little screenshots and stuff. Because I don't really, ready? Forgive me, I don't really watch it. So.
It got pretty bad after season 2.
But I've had shout outs in all the Deadpool films too, and I've been like what was that, Gail and Associates? It was an attorney at law or accountant or something. What was it?
It was in the Flash, they had an architectural firm.
Yeah, architectural, yeah. So you can tell how closely I pay attention. but it's always really cool because, I've written over 600 comics. These things that they take into film and television, they borrow a lot. And it's nice to at least have some nod that you were part of the process at some point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
In the form of a street corner.
Yeah.
An intersection, if you will.
Hi. I bought the back issues of your Red Soldier run, and I really enjoyed reading them. I like what you did with the character. And I was just going to say, I was wondering how you came to write the character, and isn't that a funny costume she tends to wear?
Okay, this is a little bit of a weird story too. So, I was asked if Dynamite had been asking me to work for them and write characters that they have for a long time, or to bring some of my own or whatever, and I was under exclusive contract with DC Comics for like 8 years, which was really great. It allowed me to, finally say, okay, if I'm ever going to see if I can earn a living writing, I need to, sell my salon and focus on writing. So, this law, and, I did a lot of work that I enjoyed there, Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman, Justice League Classified, just lots of stuff. But I got fired from Batgirl for a day or however long that was, a week. And I didn't know if anyone else would be interested in me working for them after being exclusive with DC for 8 years. And then my email got flooded, the phone calls were coming, and Dynamite called and they said, what about, what would you like to write for our company? And I'm like, this is all, I don't know what's happening yet. And anyway, they said, what about Red Sonja? We'd really love for you to write Red Sonja. And I said, no, thank you. Because in my mind at that time, Red Sonja was literally the 80s movie or airbrushed mural on the side of a stoner van. I just didn't get it, you know. And so I said no, and then I was talking to my mom, and I said, oh, they offered me Red Sonja, and she's like, you said yes, right? I'm like, no, I didn't. And she said, oh, please, you have to write Red Sonja. I love Red Sonja. Red Sonja is the greatest. Red Sonja, Red Sonja. And I'm like, really? I didn't know this about you, Mom. And I think, you know, as a redhead, we do kind of grab things and just hold on to them really tightly, especially if they're not like a wicked stepsister or an evil witch, you know. So I think that was part of it for her, but she just really loved Red Sonja, and she texted me and called me repeatedly. You're gonna say yes, right? I'm like, Mom, I already said no. And she just was so adamant about it, and so I said,
She'd
well,
never read one of your comics.
yeah, she'd never read one of my comics at this point, you know. And so then I asked Nick and Dynamite, is Red Sonja still available? And they're like, oh yeah, we want you to do this. And I said, okay, well, I will agree to do 6 issues, just to make my mom happy is what I'm thinking. And to stop this flood of, you know, texts and calls about Red Sonja. And he said, okay. So I sat down and started thinking about Red Sonja and reading some of her older material and thinking about how to take a character like that, modernize her, how put her in, you know, keep her in her Kania and the Hyborian age, but give modern themes to it and types of stories I wanted to tell, and just how could this work. And so when I sat down and thought how I felt, you know, her character could be updated. Once I sat down to write, I'd be like, oh, I'm just going to work on Red Sonja for a couple hours, and I'm going to go off and do this other project for the rest of the day. And I'd look up like 12 pages later, and the day is gone, and I was really having a great time. So now, like, I'm still writing Red Sonja. I'm not writing the regular comic, but I'm involved in the film. I'm involved in some other things that are Red Sonja that we can't talk about yet. But I really have fallen in love with her, and working with Walter on her, you know, doing the art. He keeps her sexy but appropriate and for her character. And you know, I don't mind the chainmail bikini. I feel like she's more comfortable in that than she would be, you know, prom dress, for instance. But I don't think that she'd be wearing it in Blizzard.
Thank you. Maybe she'd have a heater in the bikini.
That seems appropriate for her. What do you think the best compliment you've ever received is? Is it your mom wanting you to write this on you?
No, I don't think she was complimenting me. Just, wow.
What about Steve Gerber?
Yeah, that might be the one that meant the most. Steve Gerber, he's the creator of Howard the Duck, and there's tons of really